Hey everyone, and welcome back to another class. Today we're mixing it up a little bit and we're going to be painting something a little different. Not all paints are suitable for certain jobs. And so with that, I can remember years ago when my oldest daughter was probably like kindergarten, first grade. It was Mother's Day and she brought home this most adorable little terracotta pot that they had painted. It was so cute, and I actually put a plant in it, and as soon as I watered the plant, all the paint came off. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I will tell you the same thing happens. Like, don't use poster paint if you're painting pumpkins. That's not the right paint for that. So I wanted to share just a cute project that we're doing, but really talk more. I've kind of done a pre-layer on this just to kind of save time. But the important thing is knowing what paint is suitable to the right project. And I've got a couple pots I can show you to show you that this is tried and true, especially when you're dealing with porous surfaces like this. You want to use an enamel paint or a glass paint. That is critical because it's going to hold up like a boss for you. So I'm going to show you a couple that I've done, and I'll explain my testing process. See if I can kind of turn this here. This is, you can see it's not a very neat job, but it's just one I did real quick for my succulents. And I've got another one here. Just really kind of basic, but it's really cute. If you can see that. So these, I live in Southwest Florida. Those have been sitting out in the direct sunlight on a table. They get rained on, they get pounded with the sun, and they look just as good as they did basically when I painted them a year and a half ago. I mean, how many times have you had something that just didn't hold up because it's can't handle that kind of intense sun and intense heat. Painting with enamel paint, though, is really not my favorite. I've got a couple of different brands here to show you kind of what's on the market. This is Apple Barrel. They called this a multi-surface. So you want to kind of look on here and make sure that like they're suitable for glass. This one even lists terracotta. Top rack dishwasher safe when cured. These you can, if you let them dry and cure for an adequate period of time, or if you're painting like glass or terracotta, you can even go ahead and heat set them at like 350 for about 30 minutes. If I put something in the oven like that, I usually will let it get up to temperature. And then when it gets close to the time, I go ahead and turn it off. And then I let that glass or that pottery come down slowly in temperature just to kind of give it time to cool down. Just that way you don't have to worry about any stresses on the product because it cools down too quickly. But Apple Barrel has a product. This is Folk Art Enamel. They even have the little glass sticker usually on the top of those. Here's one that is glass and multi-surface, another Folk Art product. Let me see, Plaid. Let me find a Plaid brand. This is Americana. Let's see, I know I've got one somewhere. Folk Art. That's Americana. Let me find, now that I've mentioned it. Alright, but Plaid has one too, so you really have to read the labels. You can buy these at the craft and hobby stores. They're usually $1, maybe even less. Walmart will even carry a selection of these. Depending on the project and the effect, you do want to look at the labels carefully, because like this one here, if you see transparent glass, that means that this color here is not going to have any opacity. So if you're trying to cover something or get a solid color, even though that's purple, it's just not going to have that kind of coverage to it. I actually put this out by mistake. I didn't look carefully, but this is a transparent glass and it's like a glitter paint. So I had brought it out when I did part of the base coat thinking it was like a light white or off-white, and when I realized it was the wrong thing, I thought, well, I'll still use it. So I'm doing a little Frieda Kahlo inspired pot. So I've done a base coat here on the flesh tone. I did 2 coats here, and then I just used up that glitter if you get a little sheen from that. And then I've done 1 coat here on the dark part for her hair. So I wanted to show you too some things. If I think about it, I should link up I did a big window one time in my bathroom, and I did like this little grapevine scene. I loved the window. It was an ugly window. I wanted the privacy, but I wanted the light to come through. And I used glass paint, and it's really not my favorite. This pot here, you can see how it's darker. It's because it's wet. I actually dropped it in here, and it's still drying out. But this is a little one I was going to just kind of base coat in between. But I wanted to show you what it goes on like. So this is still a little damp. So you can see, even though this is an opaque color, it just doesn't cover well. And when you're painting on a dry surface like glass, you can feel it like drying and the moisture sucking out of it. So a couple things to keep in mind. You're going to be better off when you're doing a paint like this, doing thinner layers. Here's the thing you want to avoid, like when you're putting this on, you've got all this paint. You don't want to leave those little rolled edges because they will show through. You're not going to have a smooth finish. And so that's one of the things I don't really care for about this, because it will dry quickly. It almost gets a little, like it has a little grab to it, if that's, but this one here, you're not going to feel that because the pot is wet, but this is not the recommended way. You do want to paint it. So you're going to get better results if you paint when the pot is completely dry. But I just wanted to show you, so you can see you might need 2 to 3 layers of this to get a nice, smooth, solid surface. So here I tried to, do a little quick layer on the edge so it would be easier to handle. Kind of paint the bottom side here too. But these little pots are really inexpensive, and if you're thinking about doing a gift of a plant or something, how cute is it to have a nice little personalized pot to go with it? This is even something your kids can do for grandparents, for holidays, and so that's what, coming back to this one, I'm going to do that little Frieda Kahlo inspired pot. I like to keep succulents around, so having cute little pots and stuff, that's always a fun thing to showcase those. So on this, typically you would have a black paint. I actually don't, but that's never really too big of a deal because I know that I can mix something. This is a little more on the blue side, so I wasn't too concerned about that because I knew it was going to be my base layer. So if you don't have black, how can you do that? So one thing, I was going to look at my darkest colors. And so here I had this kind of, what is this? They call this a cerulean blue. This is a berry wine. And I kind of have a dark, this is a hunter green. And so this will be a chance to kind of see how can you compromise with when you don't have maybe like your traditional colors that you're used to for mixing black. So I know that these two here, like green and purple, usually can give you a nice good black. So here I'm taking that blue and the red. Okay, until I get kind of a nice deep purple. Then I'll bring that green in. That green is going to neutralize some of those cool colors that you're going to find in your black, where it gets a little more on the blue side. Acrylic paints or enamel paints, they do dry a little darker. So, you know, that's not too bad of a black there. Some of this you can definitely see a little bit of that blue undertone to it. So you just have to kind of mix and tweak. I'm not worried. This is going outside. I'm not worried about perfect lines, and but I do want a nice durable layer on here. The tricky thing sometimes is always figuring out how can you keep working. I do have a hair dryer handy. I like to go just inside that rim a little bit in case I have a little bit of settling in my paint. Just going to keep working and get that second layer. That second layer makes a huge difference. Now that this has one layer on it already, the paint goes on much more smoothly. It just makes a huge difference there. Now this black part on her hair, if you're familiar with Frieda, she is a artist from Central America, like Mexico. She did a lot of self-portraits, and if you have seen pictures of her before, oh, that's a little more blue, so we got to hone that back with the other two colors. She always wore like flowers in her hair. I know she was also married to an artist. Can't tell you his name. I want to say like Diego, maybe. But, you know, for being a woman during that time, being an artist and being recognized as an artist. Okay, here's where it gets tricky because all that is wet. So if you want to do this, and you're trying, if you don't have a specific flesh color, I'll move this over here. I had kind of the peach color, some white, and a little bit of some brown that I used to kind of do that flesh color. This stuff dries to the touch, I mean, reasonably quickly. When you're doing that first layer, though, you can just feel it sucking the water out of there because of how porous the terracotta is. Right, so I'm going to just take a quick hit with the hair dryer here. Like that little glitter effect here on the skin is kind of like unexpected. I just really need this kind of skinned over and dried to the touch. Let's come in with some green. This is it's called Fresh Foliage. A little bit of that. So I'm doing this two-sided, that way depending on how it, you know, that way if it's on a table you can see it from both sides. I'm just going to put a couple leaves in as a little background to the flowers, and I'm just going to do kind of that little spade shape. You can see going over such a dark color, we'll have to do 2 layers on this to get it to think about how these might kind of border some of the flowers. I want it more about the flowers than I do the greenery. And let's put one here. Okay, so I've got some as a base layer there. Oh, there we go. See, that's what not to do. I talked about how quickly it dries. I guess my key is to make sure where am I smearing it from. I'm making little print marks all over this. So see, this stuff happens in real life. I'll just go back over that with a little, just have to be a little more careful before I finish the face. I'm going to work on, I can do that while I'm waiting on my leaves to dry. You know, when you're doing this on your own, you know, you can take a little more time to do something in between and give this a little more time to dry. Okay, so there's enough there. Right, so the tricky part, because like that's already dry, is going to be matching up that skin tone. Kind of feather it out into what's on there. Right. Let me grab a round brush. Here, some orange, pink. I want things that are going to be bright. And remember, as I do these, they all will need to, they're all going to need more than one coat. I'm just reusing this palette sheet. This is acrylic paint that's dry up here. I knew I wouldn't need much space. So here I'll use, since I've got some of this out, and here I'm going to come in I'm just going to do 3 petals on that, because then I'll put another one right up against it. Like here I can come in and say you even have or I could just do them all little 3 petal flowers. Those always look kind of sweet. I think that's what I'm going to do. If I happen to need the room to make one with 4, that's fine too. Pink, orange. Let's do a bright blue too, like a little variety. Alright, so let's break over here to some purple now, and I'll bring that in. And one coming here. I think I like that other brush better. And I'm just going to fill in as I go along. I want to alternate my colors so they're, I get some varieties. And then I'll come back and I'll put the little yellow centers in here. To go back into another pink. Into that aqua teal color. So if I kind of keep going left to right, it kind of allows me to kind of, I think, arrange things, and I'm not as worried about if I'm right-handed messing up what I have on that side, since I'm kind of past it now. And let's do the orange. Now let's go here. That color on top. So as you can see, I'm putting this on rather heavy because I don't want to have to come back and mess with it too much. I think I'm going to stick just a little purple partial one under here. Maybe we'll do the whole thing and bring that down. So I'm okay with what I've got there. And while I'm on this side here, come back over and a little more to the green leaves. You can even highlight those, bring a little yellow in. That one's mostly covered up, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Okay. So we'll let that dry, and we're going to come and I'm going to try to make sure I get my finger placement where it's not going to touch anything. And again, I'm going to have to touch that flesh color up a little bit. So another little tip is keep your enamel paints separate from your acrylics, because they, you know, they each are their own kind of thing. Okay, just kind of hide that a little bit. Again, I'm going to come in here and do that same thing, just kind of build my flowers across. So let's start off, we'll do a little purple up in here. My daughter really likes her succulents too. Such fun, cute little plants. I know one of my daughters got the other daughter as a gift one of those little succulent subscriptions where you get a new little set every month. So that has been really fun to see different varieties that maybe you might not see in your stores. There's all kinds of different little flowers that you could do. I'm just looking for something kind of simple that's going to go with this little whimsical. I'm going to stick a little half petal there. And I can bring another one up here. Maybe I'll just do 2 petals there. Bright green. But, you know, just coming back to understanding that difference in paint, and if you're doing something for indoor use only, you could use an acrylic paint. Like if you were going to do like a little ring dish or something like that. But this by far, you know, like I said, just seeing that sun test is going to be really your most durable option. Most of these paints are going to be, you know, that kids could use them, you know, with, I don't think that there are any, I'd have to look at the thing to see, you know, if there's any like toxicity or not for children to use. But I think with supervision, I think most of that they'll be fine. Okay. I'll come back to the purple. Don't know that I've used these enough to say that there's a big difference in one brand to the other. You know, I just find that unless it's a project like this that really dictates that, you know, you need to use something that's suitable for glass, it's not my favorite paint to use by far. Maybe if I can figure out how to do it, maybe I will try to link a picture in flash one on, you know, like a little picture, and show you the window that I did. I did it kind of like a stained glass, and it was took me quite a bit of time. You know, you have to kind of plan out what you're doing. And then what I did is I took, for the black part of, I've got a chunk of something in there, for the black part where that leading would be, for in between the parts, I used an acrylic, not a black, I used black acrylic paint, and I mixed it with some wood glue, and that actually kind of like thickened it up, and it kept it dimensional. I don't know what made me come up with that. That's kind of my own little mix, but I had it on that window for several years. We just got new replacement windows last year. You know, hurricane windows, and I was kind of sad to see it go because I really loved the way that the light came into that room. It was such an ugly window, and that at least made it livable. You know, like I can look at that now and not hate it. But I love the way different times of the day when the light would come in, it just made me happy. You know, like it, because it brought just kind of that glorious color into the room. All right, so I'm going to just take about a 2-second hair dryer to this, just enough to kind of skin it over. Like I said, I tried to put this on a little thicker so I wouldn't have to come back and deal with 2 coats, but you can see when you do that, it works for flowers if they're a little gloppy. And I can still always come back over later, but for the sake of kind of progressing, I'm going to go ahead. So I've got this kind of like lemon yellow here, and I'm going to bring some over here. I'm going to bring a little white into it just to help bring a little opacity into that. Usually yellow is not a color that covers very well. Okay. And so here I'm just going to come right into the center, placing it on rather heavily. You see, you might even find if you're just kind of like dabbing it on and pushing it around rather than stroking a whole lot, so I'm not picking up more of that color of the flowers because they are still wet. And this one down here. You see how cute that that's turning out. Let me get this side. For the face, I'm going to do something simple. Yeah, I saw this idea on Pinterest, doing the Frieda Kahlo on the flower pot, and so when I saw that, that's like, oh, that's what I want to do, because it's just kind of fun and whimsical. The one of the things, if you look like in her self-portraits, you know, how everyone always about, you know, the grooming the shape of your brows and everything when it comes to like beauty and makeup. Well, in her self-portraits, you know, you can see that she included, you know, where she had the little unibrow going on. And so a lot of times you're going to see that when people kind of portray pictures of her. All right, so I'm going to come in to do my mixed black again. Let me make sure that's clean. And I'll use a smaller brush. I'm going to mix it with the bigger one. I think I've got enough of what I need here. If you're not sure, like where I've got this whole mix, I'm not sure what that tone of your color is. It always helps if you take a little bit and kind of thin it out on the side. You can see it's a little more on the blue side, so I'll bring a little more of the other two in. At least get me enough that I don't have to keep mixing. Yeah, did you see that? Alright. So on her eyebrows, I'll just kind of come in and start off with like a little arch shape. Here, kind of just feather a couple little ones in between, and the trend seems to be to do her with her eyes closed and with some lashes. I probably need a better brush than this. And so depending, you could stop at the nose and still do her some lips. So I think for purpose's sake, I will do with some, since I've got some pink here, and I'm probably only going to do like this top lip part, because if I put it up too high, she is not going to look proportional. Okay, so see, that pink is definitely going to need another coat. And let me turn this around, find places I can hold this. this one I can probably bring the brows up a little higher. So yeah, it was too wet and it is bleeding. Just when I'm blotting my brush, I'm not getting enough of the water out. Drier towel to blot on here. This one's pretty wet. There we go. So on this one here, we might have a little more room for all of her lips. Shaped mouth there. And get a little second coat on here. Alright, so I can let this dry and come back and touch up and go back over, but I think you get the gist of what we're doing, and especially what you need to do to make sure that you're doing a pot that is going to last. So if you enjoyed this information, I hope that you will check out my other classes and subscribe, and we will see you then for the next class.